Hello people. Welcome back to our channel Into Form. I'm Paul,
And
and
I'm
this
Jimmy.
is
Jimmy.
yes.
Woo!
and so we want to continue with what we started with in our last video, talking about our personal journeys and sharing from our personal experiences, because that's what feels most alive for us right now. Um, so yeah, you want to just dive into it, Jimmy? Like, let's just dive in.
Yeah, mine as well.
Yeah, and I kind of want to start with you again, if that's cool.
Okay.
So where we left off was you discovered tarot. You're about 14. You started giving readings to people, your family, friends, and it made a difference for them. You really had an impact on some people, and it was like a meaningful mode of service for you. Uh, and it opened up some different things for you. So, what happens next?
What happens next? I love that. I love the here's the thing that cracked you open. Here's the thing that gave me insight into my intuitive abilities, my the way I can experience a relationship to anything. And these are the moments, right? Like where what comes next is such a pivot point because of whatever was generated in the first place. And I think as we continue to do this series and talk about these kind of chronological almost events that have led us to where we are in our spiritual paths now, it's so beautiful to really recognize that each piece is the stepping stone into the next, and that we're always like carried like a boat on a river. I feel so carried by life. And I know what I'm creating right now is carrying me into my life. But it's always, about like what's happening right here, right now. And so at that time, shifting out of tarot, I feel like that was the first time in my life that I was starting to build a lot of different connections. I was active in theater in high school and performance. Performance was super enlivening for me. I feel like I got a lot of value out of performance. And I was also connecting with a lot larger group of friends than ever before. I feel like that was something that was potent for me, was because I was very introverted most of my life, very to myself, and I would have a few friends here or there. And it was kind of that way up until right around tarot times and a little bit after and afterwards. And then there was an explosion of me kind of, I feel, stepping more into activity, and then like moving into getting my driver's license and having the freedom to go and connect and socialize. And I feel like that, just even like that step into more of a adult essence of connection and activity with a group of people, was a really enlivening experience for me. An experience that was bringing me deeper into relationship. And as I felt deeper into relationship, I felt like I was falling deeper into this spiritual experience of life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, Jimmy, when I feel you sometimes and I think about you, like I feel how important your friends are to you, your friendships and your relationships. Like I feel like you said in the last video, you're very like focused on relationships, but I've always felt like just an intuition with you, like your friends are such a big part of your life.
Mm. Yeah, I've always felt that way. Like I always felt like, at least since early middle school, I felt my friends were the most important thing to my life. And yeah, this was a time in my life right after tarot where I really started to begin to see that very clearly, how important my relationships really were to me. And not only that, but how important relationship was. I always felt like it was this beautiful. I could see how challenging it could be to have a relationship that is thriving and showing up truly for one another in like a very serviceful, overflowingly joyful, beautiful way. And yeah, being in that, just like seeing the early stages of what relationships could be, and how they could impact me and how I could have an impact on others' lives, I feel started to bloom for me, and that really gave me a deeper experience of how true it was for me to want to connect and to want to build community and to want to create friends. And I feel like that's led me like deep into my life now, where I feel I have a beautiful and expansive community that's beautifully close, and I feel so grateful to have amazing, powerful relationships.
Yeah.
And a lot of that early motivation to kind of create what I feel I've created with my life today is because of that branching out into more relationships after tarot.
Mm, mm. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm part of the relationships you've called into your life, and I'm part of your tribe, and I can testify to the beauty of all the connections you've made. And when we all came together this year in April, in April? No. When did we all come
Uh,
together in North Carolina?
August.
August?
Yeah.
April, August, whatever. They
It
both
was
start with
supposed to be
A.
like close to April, but then we moved it.
Oh yeah. Um, yeah, yeah. It is beautiful what you've called into your life right now, and all the different connections that you like. They're your friends, but also your friends have become friends with each other, and so that's really cool. I've benefited from that too. So
Yeah, I'm glad, and that's something that brings me so much joy, because I feel
yeah,
like that's where a lot of like where I've held community as my purpose. And I can almost go into that. I think I just want to say that like really quickly,
yeah,
briefly about my like personal journey. I feel like that was one of the biggest leaping stones. Is again, and that's kind of what I'm talking about. Is community has always been a leaping stone for me in my path. Whether it has been
yeah,
like inspiration to create like off-grid sustainable living community, whether it has been just the inspiration to connect and expand my personal community. But this is really where it started was 15, 16, 17, these few years here where I was really expanding my tribe for the first time, and connecting in a way I hadn't before. And it built that inspiration for what has been much bigger on my path and has moved me so far. Like the desire to create community, to create healthy, conscious, loving, service filled community
yeah,
has given me a reason to to truly become the person I am today. It's given me a motivation and inspiration unlike any other. My
yeah,
relationships have propelled me to be the healed, um, uh, uh, you know, uh, serving, loving, genuine, kind, empathic, devoted person that I am because of how much I care about my relationships and how much I
yeah,
care about showing up for them in a way that's meaningful and impactful and
yeah.
honest and true.
Yeah, like because like in our relationships, everything that gets in the way of the connection with somebody else comes up as if to ask us to look at it and see if we can accept it or heal it or do something to get back into connection with the other people. So like relationships are like these crucibles where anything and everything that gets in the way of us being connected to each other just comes up to be witnessed and purged and cleansed out of us. And so they're like such powerful um, vehicles for like our expansion and our awakening. And feel like you naturally intuited that, and of course it's part of all of our journeys, but I feel like that kind of explains why it's helped you cultivate what you've cultivated, because all that stuff comes up in our relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for saying that so clearly and beautifully. Yeah. Yeah. That's the best part is the mirror of what we get to be for each other, and the way that, yeah, we get to trigger the mud or the gunk.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. All the layers.
All the layers.
All of the layers of the onion. Does this thing have an end? Does it have an end?
It's just like baby onions inside of onions. It's like the Russian dolls, but with onions.
Yeah, the nesting
You peel
dolls.
all the layers, and then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, a whole another onion.
Yeah, there's a whole nother onion in here. It's like a fractal onion.
Yeah.
Like you get to the end of one onion, there's another onion.
Yeah, I know, right? And you seem to cry every time you peel back a layer.
Okay, so to kind of keep us on track, I guess.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so you were getting to a time in your life where you were becoming more of an adult. You had more independence, and also your certain relationships were becoming more active for you and kind of inspiring you to grow. Would you say that's accurate? And this was in your high school years.
Yeah, inspiring me to grow, especially my first girlfriend. I think having a girlfriend in high school, like I was a sophomore in high school, and that was definitely like partnership, and that's the best thing. I love partnership in a way that is special to me in any relationship, just because I get to have that strongest sense of what we're talking about, that mirror of being reflected. All of the shit about myself I want to transform, all the trauma and unhealed wounds and everything, all the patterns I live, unconsciously. Like my partner gives me the glimpse into that the most. And this was an early version of that. I was very fortunate to have a very beautifully intelligent person who I'm still friends with today, as an early partner. And and I really grew into, and I was 2 years younger, you know what I mean? I was like a sophomore, she was a senior. So, which is similar to my partnership today, where I was 21 when I came together with Jaima, and she was 36. So 16 years, or she had just turned 37. I had just turned 21. She had just turned 37. So there's this thing about being with the wiser woman that's been really supportive for me.
This pattern.
It's a pattern for me. But I loved it, because 2 years at that age, that was that person had gone through a lot more experience than I had at that point in my life, and that really supported me to ground in more. I was very floaty and airy and overly emotional and just not very much in control at all with my emotional expression. It was rampant.
I'm remembering the story you told me about when you were learning to get your driver's license, and you were all over the road basically, right? And it kind of was a reflection of your state of mind at that time.
Yeah, it was. I was completely reckless. I would count my almost accidents I would get into. It was funny too. I took a lot of pride in the fact that I would evade so much so quickly and always avoid the accident. Except I was so ungrounded that I would just always get myself into those situations. No, it's scary when I think about it. I'm like, they shouldn't let 16-year-olds on the road, because I was one of those 16-year-olds. Terrifying.
I didn't get my license until I was 18.
Wow. Yeah.
So, but through no merit of mine. That was because I failed the test.
That's funny. I probably should have waited. It would have been safer. I would have saved some money on But I needed the freedom, though. I feel like I was
Oh yeah,
gasping for that air at that
you wanted
age.
to get out of the house.
Yeah. hmm So I'd like to shift into. I want to hear about you. So
Some of my
just
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, I just gonna just to wrap that up. I feel I'd like to talk about that more maybe in a future segment, but
Sure, sure.
mainly just sharing that community in my life, an early community, was a first glimpse into what the power of relationships could be,
Yeah,
and how fulfilling it was for me to connect to relationships,
yeah.
and that knowing has really guided my journey very
Well,
strongly.
I think that's so great, because I feel like part of the um, like what would you call it? Like one of the ideas we're embracing in the collective consciousness is like how important relationships are on the spiritual journey, and seeing them as like such power, like we are saying, like such powerful uh, conduits for growth. Um, and so so we can see that really clearly in what you're sharing in your life, and I think that's being what I'm saying is like I think that's being embraced more widely too. Like I feel like we're getting onto the fact as like a collective
Mm.
that that's true.
Yeah, that like as a collective we are beginning to understand how supportive relationships can be, and I get
Yeah,
we're also learning to how to show up in relationships in a way that is supportive, yeah,
yeah,
and accepting and loving. Like I see our collective putting a lot of effort into understanding how to build a cleaner and cleaner relationship.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's really interesting since we're going to talk about me now.
Yeah.
Going to talk about me. That in a way, I had kind of an opposite experience during about that same time in high school. I was very much a loner, uh, like a lone wolf. I think I even would say that phrase to myself sometimes, or thought of myself as like a lone wolf. I was very isolated. I didn't have a lot of good friends in high school or people that I would hang out with regularly. I didn't have a girlfriend until my senior year, so it was yeah, I was alone. Um, so that gave me a lot of time to go inward, and I did a lot of thinking very deeply about things. Yeah, and now I'm in a different place.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I was saying, yeah, I was really like I was kind of a lone wolf. I did a lot of thinking. Um, you know what? I'll kind of like tie it back with where I left off last time. With at a certain point, um, I broke with the Christian belief system that I had that I was given when I was growing up. At a certain point, I started to question that, and I always felt like even when I was a kid, I felt that certain aspects of it didn't resonate with me. I remember being in Sunday school, and Sunday school teacher was talking about like how God created everything, and there was like God and then everything. And inside, I felt like, well, how's there God and then everything? Like, how is God separate from anything? That doesn't make sense to me. Like, what made sense to me was like God, what God creates is also God. That's what I felt. I didn't have those words for it, but I was just like, I feel like this is all God. I don't feel like there's a separation. Um, so there were certain things in me that like kind of biased me towards wanting to break with that belief system. Later on, about 13, 14, I started to really break with it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go explore some other sources of wisdom. I remember wanting to explore other religions. And so it took a number of years, but I ended up getting more interested in like philosophy, and I thought of myself as like a rational philosopher. And so yeah, very intellectual and heady. And I was reading Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged, which we both read that in high school. It might be interesting to explore that. Uh, but yeah, um,
Yeah, it's like the Christian church is that avenue kind of fell away for you. It's like
yeah,
I get that you found yourself at a time where you were isolated not only in your physical world, like not having many relationships happening,
yeah,
but also isolated in a sense of introspection, of really moving inward in a philosophical, intellectual, like a discovery filled way. I get you were like on a mission.
yeah. Oh, thanks for helping me out there. Thanks for throwing me that rope. There was more of a seeking energy that came in. That was the first time I think that the seeking energy really came in, which is why in my mind it feels like at the end of the when I was breaking with that Christian belief system, uh, and then that kind of started a phase. I think that's why my mind sees it like that, is because that was the first time that I felt like I was seeking for something. Um, and I was seeking for kind of what's the truth. What's the truth? If this belief system that people gave me it isn't true, then what really is true, and what does this all mean? So it kind of had an existential quality of what's the meaning of all this, and like what is this? And yeah, so and I wanted to well, I guess it was just natural to go to my mind, to look for the answers and to investigate using my mind. So I looked to my mind for guidance. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I when one reality of the world breaks down,
yeah,
it forces you into needing to search to understand your reality.
yeah,
I imagine something especially like that. It's like religion paints a very full picture of reality, and as soon as it doesn't work for you, well, it's like, well, what is reality? What is the case here?
yeah,
And I get that. Yeah, it gave you an opportunity to explore, to go into your mind and explore for yourself. And my sense is that it also gave you a great opportunity to explore your mind and its
yeah.
ability to discover.
But yeah, it did, and I kind of found. I mean, looking back in retrospect, I can see like my tendency to be intellectual was there, from very early on. I mean, that's where I went. I went into my head to try and figure it out. But I also want to get across like it was super real for me, like finding out what's the meaning of all this
Mm.
and what's going on. Like that lived in my heart. I was going about it like using my mind to find out what's true, but like the concern about what's the truth and what are the answers, that felt like it was in my heart. Like that felt very important to find that out. So, and that went along with the seeking energy too. The seeking energy had this sense of like um, it needed to find its resolution. You know?
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I get that there was a lot of like purpose in your heart and a lot of um, purpose to discover, purpose to know the truth, and to understand. And
yeah,
yeah, and I get that's like what that was. It seems like that was the first time that energy maybe like really arose for you, and
yeah,
was with that desire to seek.
yeah. With the desire to seek, and in because I feel like talking about it now, I feel like I'm just putting this together, but with my early experiences in the church, I'd really connected with something profound, and I didn't understand it very well at all. Um, so I knew that there was something. I could feel that something, you know, that something that profound whatever. It doesn't have a name, but I had already felt it. So that and that so part of me knew that, and when that seeking energy went looking for whatever it was looking for, it was like I had that knowledge too, that there's more to life than I might see reflected in the world around me. You know, even if people aren't talking about what I felt, I still feel it in my heart,
Mm.
you know? So that was there too. And I feel like that's why it felt so important to me, was because I had had um, such a meaningful experience
Mm.
connecting with God as a kid. And then the belief system that I had thought about that in was broken, you know? So it's like one intense experience, and then the way that I'd conceptualized it broke. So that really opened up, a quest to know, like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so what was that? You know,
What was that? Because it was very real for you,
it's
and
so real. Yeah.
it was powerful, potent spiritual experiences as a young person.
Well, and I knew that's what my heart loved. You know, it
Mm.
felt like my heart loves God. That's what my heart loves, and the way that I thought about God was broken, or it wasn't, I didn't feel that it was what people around me were telling me that it was. So that was, yeah, that, I mean, anybody would want to find out the truth at that point, I think, if
Yeah,
they were in my shoes.
yeah, because it's like you experience like real, authentic love and God, which is
Yeah.
just beautiful. Like God is so extraordinary, and you got to have those experiences as a small child. And so come the time that the container that was holding those experiences, when that fell away,
Yeah.
it must have been the most important thing in the world to build the new container. What
Yeah.
is the container that's holding my understanding of this essence, this being, and my experiences with it?
Exactly. And it felt like, even when I would go through the motions of going to high school and doing my extracurricular activities and socializing, that always felt like the most important thing. That was always in the background. It just had this sense of, this is the most important thing. And it's almost like, if I wasn't distracted by all those other external things, then I would have probably given more time to it. Um, but yeah, it always had that sense of importance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That I get that that's something that came from your experiences in the church, and it was that space of importance, and
Yeah.
it carried you strongly into a powerful path of seeking and
Yeah.
intelligent exploration.
Yeah, man. So yeah, and so that led to and it's interesting, because even though it started out that way, very spiritually, um, at a certain point, I thought of myself as an atheist, and I didn't want anything to do with what other people were, what people in the church specifically were calling God, um, because I just felt that wasn't it. I felt like that wasn't it, and that they had settled for uh, something where it just seemed not alive to me, like it was a closed belief system, and that wasn't what I was looking for at all.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, so I, almost like a rebel, like rejecting it, I tried to distance myself from that um, belief system. And then, that was kind of the phase of calling myself an atheist. But even when I was an atheist, I remember I still like picked up the Tao Te Ching that was on my mom's bookshelf and started reading it, and it really spoke to something in me. So I was like calling myself an atheist, but also like, oh, I love this Tao Te Ching thing, you know. So yeah, it never, in a way, that spiritual side of myself, it never
Yeah.
never faded away, even though in my mind I was like, oh, I don't believe in God,
Mhm.
eh.
Yeah. It was a space for your mind to go in, so you could do different forms of exploration. But at
Yeah.
the core, you were still very connected to your personal experience of source.
Yeah. And the phase of uh, atheism didn't last very long. It and we can get into this maybe in the next one, but started to feel very empty, and that spiritual essence that I was connected to, that felt meaningful, I wanted to get back in touch with that,
Mm.
so that led to the next development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love that you got the opportunity at such a young age to take God and take your knowing of God into such a um, early mind discovery space, and this like passion and drive. And I feel like I see a lot of that in your characteristic, like a lot of that in your personality of the very like experienced seeker, grounded in the knowing of God. Because I get that that's what it was for you, is that even in your earliest ages of seeking with the intellectual mind on what is this whole thing, there was still a grounded knowing of God. And even when your mind tried to think that you didn't believe in God, you couldn't get rid of that knowing of God that was deep inside.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's almost like there's a split between the mind and the body that can happen. I think ultimately they are one, and yet we can also have them be split or disconnected, you know? And so it was kind of like my mind was looking for the answers. Another part of me still felt connected. Um, yeah, still felt connected to spirit. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, I think that we should probably bring this video to a close. I think that I'm excited that we both have moved our journeys along into discovery of God and heart, and in moving forward into greater community. We're on our way to meeting each other.
Oh yes. Oh wow, that's gonna be cool. I didn't even
Yeah.
realize that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're telling the story of how we met. That's really what the long
Oh,
version.
I didn't realize that's what it was. Oh,
Pretty sweet. Very good.
that's
Great.
awesome.
Well, thank you, Paul, and thank you, listeners and
Yeah.
viewers.
Yeah. Thank you, brother. Love you, man.
Yeah. Love you too. Love you all. Thank you.
Yeah. Love you guys.